Today's session is really about discussing the gap, the solutions, and the inspirations. So I guess you have talked about the gaps in various industries. All right.
Yeah, I was about to start talking about the the women in media, which has
awesome.
some really kind of abysmal statistics in terms of women who are who are decision makers effectively in all kinds of media, film, television, news media, and in related industries, creative industries, gaming industry. And, when we, it's a pretty big issue to tackle, like what can we do about it? And I think one big thing is just educating ourselves and demanding accountability. So if you're in a position, if you have the ear of people who are, in these organizations and can, think about, how they're hiring, asking them, do you know what your gender balance is in your hiring practices and in leadership, and asking them to think about it and to look at it and to do something about it ultimately, because it's a kind of self-perpetuating cycle. If there's only and there's some wonderful, watchdog organizations at least in media. There's the Gina Davis Institute. There's Women's Media Center. And if you go to their websites, there's a ton of resources and information and current statistics about, what the numbers are. And, information is power, just knowing the facts and sharing it and asking people, to change it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stephanie, you mentioned that, right? You mentioned in your industry, you're helping to make a change. You actually helped founded a women organization. Can you share with us about what you're doing to?
Yeah, sure. So, I mentioned earlier that I've been in the financial services / fintech / payment space for the last 20 years, and how I've been in a lot of rooms over these 20 years, and I consistently remain, the only woman or the only minority. Leanin.org has stated that only 21% of C-suite leaders are women. And the Women in the Workplace study by McKinsey tells us that one of the major reasons why the gender gap exists is because of something called the broken rung, right? And it says that for every 100 men promoted or hired into a manager role, only 72 women are promoted, given that first promotion. So now you have a situation where men significantly outnumber women at the manager level. So there are fewer women to hire or promote to senior managers and above, right? And so even as these hiring and promotion rates are increasing for women at senior levels, women as a whole can never catch up because there are simply fewer women at these manager levels to advance. So it's something that, I hate to say this, but it's going to take years, like 100+ years, to be able to fix that.
That's a very good point.
Yes,
very good point. It's just simple math, actually, right? When the tree is tipped, this is how I've been talking to my Gen Z kids. Well, she actually taught me what gender inequality, what gender gap means is the apple tree is tilted, right? And it's tilted historically toward men, right? It's easier for them to grab. And for us women to grab that apple, we have to jump much, much higher. And it's a very interesting study that says women across the board who are on the board or management, they're usually much more qualified in terms of education and years of experience. So when can we change that? How can we change that so that the apple tree is not tilted anymore? I wonder, Jess, if you have any thoughts. I know you are financial advisors and your field is tremendously tilted for opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And one of the things that I think we don't say out loud enough, the experience in each of these industries that we feel is just continuous frustration. It's disenfranchisement with the idea that I can succeed and that I can climb that ladder. We don't, like, things don't change. Even though people are making decisions to increase diversity, things aren't changing. And the issue behind that is culture, and culture is created by our thoughts. And it is so much easier to, say to someone, dude, that decision, like, why'd you make that decision? Versus like, wow, how could you think that? We're not willing to rumble at the level of thought patterns, and we're simply just out there making decisions to increase the number of women we have. Mm-hmm. And it's those thoughts that create the culture. It's those thoughts that that weave into the fabric of what we're doing. And, we're missing that. The most pervasive gap in representation stems from here. If you were to imagine walking into office, who do you imagine being at the receptionist desk? Who do you imagine seeing in HR? Who do you imagine running the marketing team? Who do you imagine finding when you get down the hall to the VP and to the president of the company? Women imagine men in those presidential roles. Women imagine women in those HR roles. It is our thoughts that are continuing to perpetuate this gap. And that gap, the feeling that we feel is just frustration. We're angry. Nothing seems to change. And so it's addressing that the thought level that's really going to, I hope, Stephanie, really speed up that process. If we can dig down and do the work, I believe we can be there in faster than 100 years. But not if we just keep making decisions, not if we just keep, working on our choices.
Kelcy, I don't know if you have spoken already about the wonderful documentary you made, a PBS documentary on Wonder Women. Mm-hmm. You have looked historically, the lenses that the society and the business view our femininity. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us what caused the problem? How can we, more importantly, how we can radically change the lessons you learned from making that movie?
Wow. Well, it was hard to answer that question in 90 minutes. So it's really hard to just kind of distill it into a soundbite. I will say that, with all the research and all the interviews we conducted, one of the things that always came back to was a question of who controls the means of production. And, we imagine ourselves into roles when we see people who are like us in them. It's hard to imagine being the first person like you to do anything, so we were by the final act of the film, we're looking at programs that deserve our support and our awareness, like Real Girls, a small program in the Pacific Northwest that was REEL, that's teaching filmmaking to young girls and teenage girls and empowering them with the sense that they can become media makers one day and storytellers. And I think, it's when you consider that women are, a small percentage of the people actually, directing the films we're seeing, producing the films we're seeing, it's no wonder if you look at the Gina Davis Institute's research. I just was on their page a little bit ago, and they were talking about a recent finding about something like I'm trying to find it. Anyway, something like the top 30 films or so, highest grossing films in leading Western countries in 2019, none of them cast a woman over the age of 50 in a leading role. Now,
yeah,
who do you think is making those films?
Yeah, the stats are just astounding. So BBC cited a study that in 2019, in Hollywood, among top 100 grossing films, 1 in 10 are made by women. Mm-hmm. And in asset management industry, when I started being a manager 20 years ago, the number was 1 in 10 are female managers. And today the number, it still hasn't changed, it's 1 in 10. So Stephanie, you probably have to deal with this all the time. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts of how can we change this?
Right, it's gonna take more than a lot of prayer. It's gonna take a lot of hope. But at the end of the day, it's not just the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. The research shows that companies with at least 3 women or more at the executive level are outperforming non-diverse organizations, right? They reap profits that are up to 50% higher than non-diverse executive teams. So the data supports why it's so important to bring in diversity of age, gender, race into your executive team, so that you're not looking at solving problems through the same lens. So I think we need to use that to our advantage and advancing more women. And as we mentioned earlier, it's important that women who are at these senior levels open up the door for the others. Like one thing that I've done in the past is, if I know that I'm going to be at a quarterly business review with financial institutions and regulators and vendors, and it's probably going to be just myself and somebody from marketing who are women in the room, I will purposely bring in somebody from pricing who's a woman, so that she gets the exposure and gets to meet our vendor partners, right? So just little steps like that can go a long way.
And Stephanie, on that, you bring up such a great idea that I think is missed. And even if we're not diverse in the C-suite, when you set up a stakeholder meeting, when you're bringing people into the boardroom, why are we not cross-pollinating our ideas throughout the entire organization? If you recognize that you've got mostly women in HR and mostly men in the management positions, and making a decision about the entire company, you have the people to get into the room. They may not all be at the management level. You have that opportunity to cross-pollinate those ideas if you're willing to look across your stakeholder groups instead of simply leaving the decisions to a particular group. And that can facilitate a faster change, because then you're embracing ideas that will represent the population as a whole, on a larger scale, just by bringing the people you already have in the organization bought in, that are already there, want everyone to succeed. They're able to lend their ideas to the pot.
Wonderful, wonderful comments. And I know some of us are all part of the women's organizations. So I'm a co-founder of Women ETFs. Through 6 years, we developed 6,000 members globally. So Elizabeth Cashin and I were co-heading Speakers Bureau program, where we have 40 fabulous women. We connect them to media, financial media, and connect them to conference organizers like this. So we just have to keep pounding the table and making the progress. So I don't know how long we have. We may have just 1 to 2 minutes left. So a quick session, 30 seconds, answer question. Who is your idol, either in career or life? Kelcy.
I hate to bring it. We did sort of answer this earlier when we were biting.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. All right.
Hi, guys.
We don't need to talk about that.
Hi, everybody. We're going to keep it going for a few more minutes just because we want to give the women in the room more room, and we had technical difficulties. But Linda, if you have anything else you want to ask, we have time for one more round of questions, and then we can wrap up. And again, sorry, everybody, for the technical difficulties.
My big apology.
No,
I was,
yeah.
My apology. I was so early, but then I got kicked off, and then now I'm back. So, what questions that you would like to address? You feel like it has not been addressed?
There's a question in the chat I'd like to address.
There's a great one.
Recommendations for women who are looking for executive female mentors if they don't have any in their workplace. I would say look for us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Many of us, actually all of us on this panel, are very active on social media. And you'll see us tag each other in a number of posts and uplift each other and share different activities, different panels where we're speaking. So I would say do that. Connect with us. Connect with other women that we tag and comment on. We're more than happy or even honored to connect with you. And provide guidance and advice as you rise up in your career. So please do that, Rachel.
Yes, and I can vouch. I mean, that has been, I have found the most wonderful women through Twitter. And it is a place where obviously there's a lot of dissent, but there's also a lot of opportunity. You find your people, and it's a great place to navigate those relationships for sure. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And it's one other thing I wanted to say, it didn't come up, but, as somebody who, I'm a working mom, and I have, three kids, 6 and under. And I think sometimes professionally, women feel the urge to hide that, that fact. And I think I have the sense sometimes that when that fact comes up, you get a certain kind of reaction you wouldn't expect, like, oh, does she really have this in her? And I don't know if you all feel this way, but I feel like over the years, I almost have a mental tally of all the times people either said directly or insinuated I couldn't do something because of some factor related to me being a woman or a working mom or whatever it is. And I happen to be the kind of person that takes that as a challenge, and I'll prove every one of them wrong. But I will say that anytime you hear somebody else speaking about somebody that way, it's an opportunity to educate them on the fact that women can actually do anything. And nobody works harder than a working mom. So please just get rid of that.
Yes. Nothing else. I'll add to Stephanie and to that as well. It's a challenge. If you haven't found a mentor, it's a challenge too for you to embrace of what am I missing, what's not out there in the world. I mean, some of the best things, some of the most incredible innovations in this world have come from someone just simply saying what's not there that I need, and then filling that gap. And so, don't hesitate also as you're looking for those people to find ways to become that person, to reach out to people that you see that maybe come a few steps behind you or right there with you, and provide them the encouragement and the support that they need. And so reach out, but also reach down at the same time, and continue to facilitate that opportunity for women to find their way into the room.
Yeah, Kelcy, you mentioned something earlier. I'm also a mom, and whenever I meet people, I am not shy at all about saying that I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. I haven't slept in 6 years. That's just who I am, right? I put it out there, and I'm able to do all the things. I do have a very supportive husband at home as well, so that definitely helps. But, one time during a job interview, there was a question about project management. And I was like, I haven't really have any project management certifications. I haven't taken any courses. But the woman that I was interviewing with was also a mom. And she's like, listen, if you have 2 small kids at home, you're a project manager.
Yeah, exactly.
Stephanie, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I raised 2 kids. I had kids fairly early in my 20s, 2 kids. Finished my PhD, started a career with a wonderful supporting husband. So you do need to have a, most understanding partner. But I think a lot of that is in our head. I think if we embrace motherhood, we embrace womanhood, at the same time embrace our corporate career. And I think that makes you a more relatable, more admirable individual. So I never hide the fact I have kids. I talk about them all the time.
Yeah, so. I have to say one of my favorite things about my partner is he is very, I hear him sometimes on work calls because now we can hear everything. And, he talks about his family too. He's not shy about it. He doesn't hide it. And it's very clear that he, like me, really thinks of it as it's parenthood. And I actually hope that a silver lining of this whole kind of work from home, COVID related kind of Zoom era is that, kids bursting into the room, or, the nanny or au pair or caregiver who's brought them home for you so you can have that important business. When people come crashing through on his calls and my calls, it'll have a kind of leveling effect where people realize we're all in this. We really are all in this together. We're just people working hard, smart people trying to balance home and family and life and good work, and, transparency and communication is key.
Yeah. And the benefits that, children, the things that they teach you that you wouldn't find in any other domain, that patience, and even something I was going to mention through one of the questions that we had prepared, one of the things that we experience a lot in this environment are the microaggressions. I think that word comes up. It's kind of a buzzword, but one of the things that my kids have taught me are that micro actions in a lot of cases are a lot more impactful than the big sweeping moves that a company may try to come in and make. And I mean, like we do this thing when I lay down at night. I try to do it as often as I can, but we'll go through a high low. What's your high for the day? What's your low for the day? And it's never anything grand. It's like, her high for the day might be that I braided her hair for school that morning. Her low may be that she lost a panda eraser that her friend gave her. I mean, it's not the things that I carry on my heart. I made her cry. I'm carrying something in my heart because I made her cry all morning. It's not that. She's forgotten about it. It's the little things that matter to them, and that it's the little things that matter to people. And in the workplace, when we identify and we respect the fact that little things, those little micro actions, can make a huge difference, I do think that we can may have an impact a lot further along, and hopefully, like I said, Stephanie, I'm racing. You put a challenge out there for me, 100 years. I'm on that. We are so going to make this happen before 100 years.
# new goal.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
We have to wrap up, unfortunately, but this is my favorite panel, and you guys are so amazing. What a joy to hear you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Linda, I'm so glad you made it. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, my fabulous panelists. Go, women, go. Let's close the gap.
Thank you. Thanks, Linda. Take care. Be in touch, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.